Number 10. Late Edition. Ballora is thought of by some to be a late addition to the game's sister location, a character who was never really intended to appear and was possibly rushed at the last second in order to be finished in time for the game's release. This is scary in the sense that if this theory is true, we almost got a game without any Ballora, which would be awful considering how important some consider her to be relative to lore and how popular she is among fans for multiple reasons. Why do people think that Ballora was a late addition to the game? Well, because she has no making of available in the extras. This is odd and stands out to people as, other than Ennard, Ballora is really the only other main animatronic to not have one included. Number 9. Good animatronic. This one admittedly is not that scary, but the antithesis to it is. What if Ballora was never intending to hurt you in the games and you were simply made to think that way? Sure, she can still jump scare you, but it could be because she has been herself manipulated by Circus Baby into thinking that you are a threat. After all, Ballora doesn't really seem to be malicious in nature. She genuinely likes to sing and dance and may not even have a vengeful spirit possessing her. Is it possible that she inherently would not think to do harm to you? Is it possible that she too is being manipulated by Circus Baby into thinking that you are the enemy, just as you think she is a threat? And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are a big fan of Ballora, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. The Last Animatronic. Some believe that because Ballora doesn't have a making of feature in the extras menu of Sister Location, that this gives up some information as to not just when she was made and added into the game, but when she was made in canon. Some have taken this as a hint that Ballora was one of the latest inventions of William Afton in comparison, at least, to the other FNAF Funtime / Sister Location animatronics. Some believe that Ballora was the last animatronic in this grouping to have been made, which if you believe that she has any connection to Mrs. Afton might actually make some sense, assuming that you feel that Mrs. Afton disappeared following the death of Elizabeth for one reason or another. Number 7. Mrs. Afton's soul. So one of the prominent theories when it comes to Ballora is that she is the wife of Mrs. Afton, in spirit form at least. Some believe that Mrs. Afton died. A lot of people actually believe that this happened as the result of a car crash due to a popular FNAF music video that circulated and somehow became considered canon by fans, despite the fact that this has yet to be confirmed in-game or in any of the books. Regardless, many fans have theorized that following her death, Mrs. Afton's soul lingered on this earthly plane within Ballora, and that Ballora is, in essence, possessed by Mrs. Afton. The song Ballora sings in Sister Location has often been used as evidence to support these claims, although there are a few different explanations for those lyrics. Number 6. Not big on pretend. Circus Baby at one point in the game remarks how Ballora never learned how to pretend. Some believe this is an indicator towards Ballora's personality, and have even implied that Ballora does not like to play pretend because she is too mature and more grown up than Circus Baby in terms of her personality. Others have theorized that Ballora is simply not a fan of playing pretend, and for this reason did not like Circus Baby's plan, sensing early on that it might be flawed. It also makes sense that Circus Baby would be inclined to pretend though, considering that she seems to have kinda two sides to her, and also the fact that it's heavily implied that she can shapeshift to a certain degree, disguising her appearance, depending of course on which continuity we're looking at, as to how much she can shapeshift. Number 5. Replacement Mrs. Afton. Another theory suggests that Ballora was simply made to fill in for Mrs. Afton, filling the void in William Afton's life after his wife left him. This also seems to be supported by the lyrics to Ballora's song, which seem to be quite sad and lonely in nature overall. Ballora mostly talks about being alone, implying that someone refuses to acknowledge her presence, which makes her lonely. However, the final lyrics in the song suggest that Ballora finds joy in her performance. She sings, "It's so good to sing all day, to dance, to spin, to fly away." This could even imply if Ballora was meant to be a stand-in for Mrs. Afton, programmed to be similar to her, that Mrs. Afton found joy elsewhere in her life. And so, with William making her sad, she chose to, as the lyrics say, fly away. Perhaps Mrs. Afton left William, which is why he created Ballora. He was sad about her leaving, and so Ballora is meant to be some kind of creepy replacement? Number 4. Loss. As I said, the meaning behind the lyrics to Ballora's song have been a topic of heated debate amongst fans, and the idea that these lyrics refer to Mrs. Afton speaking out with her own voice from within Ballora, or simply repeating Mrs. Afton's own thoughts as a sort of animatronic version of her, are not the only theories to explain them. Some have also speculated that the lyrics could refer to the loss of a child, and whether or not Ballora is Mrs. Afton could be a reference to Mrs. Afton's and perhaps even Mr. Mr. Afton's grief. All I see is an empty room, no more joy, an empty tomb could specifically be a lyric referring to the death of either Elizabeth or that of crying child, or perhaps both. Number 3. An empty room, an empty tomb. What if Ballora was intended to be an animatronic to hold Mrs. Afton's soul, but instead was unable to fill that role before Mrs. Afton left or died prematurely? We still don't really know why William Afton creates animatronics and seemingly is obsessed with the mad science of bonding souls to them. Most believe that this obsession comes from a place of William wanting to discover the secrets of immortality. If he loved his wife, if he even had a wife to begin with, or a true love, is it possible that Ballora was made for her? This comes from the theory that Circus Baby may have been made for Elizabeth in a similar way, but where he succeeded with Elizabeth, perhaps he failed with Ballora, so she is an empty vessel. Perhaps the lyrics in her song refer to her own self. An empty room, no more joy, an empty tomb. What if Ballora is the empty room? What if the tomb is empty because the body ended up elsewhere due to some kind of failed bonding process? Number 2. Mrs. Afton's agony. On the other hand, maybe Ballora isn't so empty. After all, my previous point was just based on one of many different interpretations of Ballora's song lyrics. Something else you may have noticed about Ballora is just how aware of her surroundings she seems. True, she can't see because her eyes are closed, but she can hear and seemingly feel things. Maybe not physical things. I'm not saying that she has the sense of touch, but she can feel emotions. Circus Baby refers to her as being afraid in the game and also comments, as I said before, that Ballora never learned how to pretend. Probably either because she didn't want to or because she found it too difficult. Either way, pretty much everything here makes her sound fairly human. In the Fazbear Frights books, we learn that agony is powerful. So powerful in fact that you don't even need a soul to give animatronic sentience if you have enough of it. Enough agony. Perhaps it was Mrs. Afton's grief and agony over the loss of her marriage or her children that then possessed Ballora. If that is true, Ballora could exist and have sentience while Mrs. Afton could still be alive and out there still somewhere. Number 1. Purple Gal. Perhaps Ballora isn't Mrs. Afton, but even if she isn't, she could still be a companion for William. After all, something that many people have noticed is, well, how purple she is. She has purple eyes, purple hair, and a complete purple design, head to toe purple. Do you know who else is known for the color purple in the franchise? Like a lot of purple? Yep, William Afton himself, Purple Guy as we sometimes call him. So what if Ballora wasn't actually Mrs. Afton in the sense of representing his wife or being his wife incarnate, but instead was simply a creation of William's to act as his own companion? Colors are generally used in cinema and in storytelling to help connect concepts, characters, and denote themes. In this case, the connection could simply mean that these two are connected as creator and animatronic, or companions in some other way. We all know how much colors tend to be pointed out and utilized in both the FNAF books and in the games, and if any of William's children are actually animatronics in disguise, like we've been theorizing on the channel, it's possible that Ballora is still in a way their mother. She was just never human to begin with. Number 10. Official game will be delayed. Some of the facts on this list will be about the game itself, whereas in others we'll actually talk about things like its release and some of the trollalols from Scott that we saw leading up to its release, like this one. Scott Cawthon at one point wrote a community post on Steam letting the fans know that the official game would be delayed due to the fact that Scott had decided that he was creating a far too dark and scary game for consumers. He said that he wanted to take into consideration the fact that so many children play and love the FNAF franchise, and so he'd be taking several more months to rework the game and make it much more family friendly and accessible for everybody, and less like dark and scary. Of course, this was one of the scariest things of all that he could have trolled us with. The idea that the franchise we love for being so terrifying and all of its jump scares would be made less so? Scott, why? Of course, this was revealed to be just another of Scott's jokes, and of course Sister Location was released as planned on Steam with none of the delays that were mentioned in this post, and of course perfectly adequately terrifying in terms of its gameplay experience. Number 9. The Vents. Speaking of the vents though, this is probably one of the most terrifying aspects of the game, because with the vents in this game, you gotta crawl through them to get to other locations. And generally there is some kind of animatronic in there waiting to jump scare you and murder you. Do you ever wonder about alternate realities in video games? The ones where your character just died? And how that creates like a split in the timeline, and somewhere else across multiple timelines there are just a million versions of your character probably laying dead, gutted, or dismembered somewhere. No? Is that just me? Obviously, I've been reading too much sci-fi and maybe watching too much Rick and Morty. The vents are a terrifying mechanic design choice and mechanic in the game that are really good at making you feel more anxious as you move towards your task or towards the exit as the night comes to an end. The vents are basically an anxiety trap laying in wait, and, well, that is a fact. And friends, if you love FNAF like we love FNAF and you want to let us know that you love FNAF, be sure to give this video a thumbs up. And maybe I'll stop saying FNAF so much. FNAF. Number 8. Canceled due to leaks. Before Sister Location was released, Scott Cawthon and his team were obviously trying to keep everything as secretive as possible, which makes a lot of sense, especially considering all the secrets that were revealed in this game. Sister Location is like a game built out of secrets. Secrets and crawling around in terrifyingly dark vents, but mostly secrets. Unfortunately, despite some best efforts, sound clips from the game did get leaked prior to its release, prompting Scott to release a video that claimed it would be canceled due to leaks. Scott, of course, was just lovingly trolling all of us, and fans noticed that the words behind the big, bold, terrifyingly sad message was actually an Easter egg. The script referred to a news article found in the game that claimed Circus Baby's Pizza World had been closed due to gas leaks, which meant that no, the game was probably not getting canceled. In fact, it didn't get canceled. And Scott was just trolling us and also giving us an Easter egg. But still, for a second there, I think a lot of fans were terrified of the consequences of those leaks. I like how this maybe scared people into thinking twice about leaking pre-released game content in the future though. At least I hope it did. Yeah, I don't know. Pretty genius move there, Scott. Number 7. The Two Technicians. You know, I always talk about the scooper when I do these lists, just scooping people. Everything seems to come back to that scooping room, but this time around, I'm going to talk about something that I feel like none of us really dwell on for some reason, despite how very awful it is. It's like something we all just forget because of everything else going on in Sister Location that is so terrifying. And that is the fate of the two technicians. On Night 5, we learned that two technicians who were on site are still there, even after their shifts seemingly finished. Hand Unit encourages us to just leave them alone when it comes to their work, but also if we do run into them, to ask them, why they haven't left yet and encourage them to go home. Of course, we quickly learn that the technicians can't go home. They can never go home, in fact, because they were murdered. And we find them strung up on the animatronics stages. Number 6. Things are not what they seem. One of the most frightening things about the game is how twisty the plot is. It leads you to believe that Circus Baby is your friend and the only animatronic out there looking out for your better interests, until it inevitably pulls the rug out from under you, taking away your one little piece of hope, your only safety blanket in a world of death and darkness. Circus Baby is revealed to be the main antagonist who plans on using you to escape and has attempted to do so before. This time, she and the other animatronics are making a break for it together, and they want to use your skin as a suit to sneak them out. And you are going to be forced into helping them whether or not you like it, and you probably don't. Unless, of course, you play through until the other ending where you escape. But then again, there's no real escape from Ennard, is there? Number 5. The Fate of Elizabeth. The fate of Elizabeth Afton was dark and inevitably revealed in the Sister Location game. Here, it was heavily implied that Elizabeth was the daughter of William Afton, who made the animatronics. Circus Baby, she says, was made just for her, and she wonders why her father won't let her play with the animatronic. When he is not looking, she manages to sneak away to do just that. Circus Baby lures Elizabeth away from the crowd of the party with ice cream and ends up scooping her or devouring her, depending on how you want to look at it, taking Elizabeth within herself and now holding on to her soul. It's implied that this action kills Elizabeth, though we still don't know how it affected William. If Elizabeth really was his daughter, this may have been something that pushed him only further into a homicidal rage, unless he intended for this to happen. The reasoning behind William's motives are just always murky at best. Why would you even make a murderous animatronic for your daughter? I don't know. But like many, I'm interested to find out Afton's motivation locations there. Number 4, animatronic prison. I personally think the whole location we explore of Circus Baby's entertainment and rental in sister location is terrifying, and not even just for you as the player and as Eggs Benedict, aka Michael Afton. The only character it maybe isn't such a frightening place for is Hand Unit. For the animatronics though too, sister location is a terrifying premise. They themselves are trapped in the Circus Baby's entertainment and rental, forced to rehearse nightly and perform daily, threatened with being torn apart if they don't cooperate, and with being electrocuted if they want a night off. Circus Baby's entertainment and rental, when you think about it, is like an animatronic prison for them. Number 3, killer animatronics. I mean, it's no wonder the animatronics that we meet in sister location were locked away in what feels like a prison. They appear to be killer robots. In fact, although this is more theory than fact, it appears that they were designed purely for the purpose of kidnapping and killing. Circus Baby herself admits to having blood on her hands and shares with us how her programming seemed to make her very interested in monitoring the number of children in the surrounding area. It was only when children were alone and vulnerable that she seemed to feel the urge to potentially hurt them. Other than that, she was more than happy to enjoy the party and enjoy performing. This implies a sinister sub-program perhaps that could have resided within her and within all of the fun time and other animatronics within Circus Baby's entertainment and rental. Number 2, William Afton exposed. I mean, this is obviously a good thing. William Afton is a bad guy, but it's more the way in which we find out about this, and it's implied that Afton even perhaps got away with these designs that brings a chill to our bones. William Afton seems to have been exposed in the intro cutscene before we get to the main menu of the game, and we hear someone interviewing him, asking him about Circus Baby's features. The voice tells us that they believe the animatronics are state-of-the-art, but that there are some design features they don't quite understand, and that they're hoping can be explained. The British voice we later learn is Mr. Afton, who we believe to obviously be William Afton, then lists off all of the impressive entertainment features that Circus Baby has. She can dance, she can sing, she's equipped with built-in helium tanks for inflating balloons right at her fingertips, she can take song requests, she can even dispense ice cream. The voice then responds, with all due respect, those aren't the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton. This conversation implies that at some point William Afton was likely under investigation, and that the voice we hear questioning him is probably someone from the authorities. However, we also know that Afton would go on to do more terrible things from this point on, based on our very rough and very wonky timeline. So this means while people likely had some idea of what was going on, they were for some reason unable to fully stop him. Number 1, the blueprints. I can't talk about sister location and not talk about these creepy blueprints, right? With the animatronic blueprints, we got a lot more information on them than we maybe needed or bargained on, but definitely enough information to incriminate William Afton, as our interviewer was likely trying to do in that intro cutscene. We found out that Funtime Foxy has the ability to mimic parents' voices, for example. Funtime Freddy, it should be noted, also comes equipped with parental tracking, and Ballora was built to distract. But what use could any of these features have? We learned the exact purpose for these elements of design when we looked at a few of the other animatronics, such as Funtime Freddy and Circus Baby, both of which seem to have a small body inside them. Funtime Freddy is actually believed to be the perfect kidnapping animatronic, as it also comes equipped with a feature referred to on its blueprint as voice mimic and luring. I think it also mentions that Freddy's like a storage. Got a storage unit.
In its Aunt Vanessa. We know that in the FNAF novels there's a character who ends up being revealed to be a robot, that person being the main character, Charlie, Henry's daughter, the one who gets killed by Aft and then goes on to possess the puppet. But this begs the question, since it's now established that characters can be robots without even knowing it, is there someone in the game series who could have this be the case? And some people now are thinking that it's the case with Ballora and Vanessa from Security Breach. While yes, they're both female characters, when you think about it, the two have more in common than you think. Firstly, if Vanessa is a robot, it would explain how William started controlling her through the virus, since sentient code shouldn't really be able to affect organic matter like the brain. Also in the books, Charlie's robot is also revealed to be Baby, who can shift between her forms using the pins that we see in the trailers, you know, like the pins that and the blueprints and Yeah, so the technology is there, especially when both Baby and Ballora come from the same group of animatronics. And at 9, mother figure. Some also believe that whether she is Vanessa or not, that she was intended to be a form of mother figure for Afton's kids once their mother left or died or whatever happened to her. Maybe she never even existed. This is based off the mini arenas that Ballora basically is a mother towards, and the fact that there would be one for each Afton kid and then another spare. Now this could be William just having mommy issues, or it could be a secret 4th Afton kid like I've proposed in the past. And if that is the case, perhaps Vanessa was intended to be that kid, hence why she'd be a robot. Or Vanessa was just the human version of Ballora, so the kids wouldn't freak out about having a literal robot that looked like a robot as a mom. But then again, it could just be Afton wanting to be treated like a kid and have someone to hold him and make the pain go away. That's definitely not the healthiest option, but it's something Sigmund Freud would be proud of. Also guys, if you're enjoying the video and you want to see more, be sure you hit that like button and subscribe, because we put out daily FNAF content whether I want to or not. So do it. And at 8, surrogate family. The mother figure idea could have been extended to the rest of the Funtime animatronics, or those that would have been at Circus Babies. Because while yes, the animatronics were made to grab kids and their restaurants was in essence a murder den built after his old one closed, Afton did at least make Circus Baby for his daughter, or at least in her image or based on what she likes. Since after all, his kids was his prime demographic. It's a whole other can of worms too. Let's not get into that. His family was basically his focus group, and maybe that's why Ballora is so slim thick. He was talking to Mike a little too much. However, this could have been the downfall of the business, since if he did actually base some of the animatronics off his kids, that could have been their downfall. Especially because Funtime Freddy, Foxy, and Baby each represent one of his kids, with Freddy being crying child thanks to his unfortunate incident at the sister location, Foxy being Mike because, you know, Foxy bro, and Baby being Elizabeth for other obvious reasons. It could have also been William's ultimate undoing if you think about it too, because like Mike, because Mike is the one who stopped him. Yeah. And at 7, lonely Afton. Or maybe this was never for his kids. After all, Afton is a man, albeit a deranged one, but even the most deranged men have needs. So maybe Ballora was a little more than a mother figure for the kids, or at least intended to be more. After all, we know she represents someone that William didn't let into his life, whether that be after his wife's exit from his life or Elizabeth's death. But even then, if we start to think about it, thanks to the fast facts found in FNAF AR, we know that the Funtime animatronics were among some of the first ever animatronics made by Afton. And if this was the case, Ballora would have been around before Elizabeth got caught by Baby, especially if she was made for Circus Babies. So after Afton's wife or baby mama leaves him or dies, he finds a woman who wants to help him. However, he doesn't let her into his life and instead makes a robot version that won't judge him and can probably do other things as well, because let's face it, William wasn't in the brightest mindset. And if you think about it, there could be a reason Ballora is flexible. Obviously, to help out with work around the house. Where's your mind at? It's gotta get down low to get up in the attic. You know, it's a small attic. You gotta do like the crab walk. It's easier with an animatronic. What were you thinking, sickos? And at 6, missing children. We also learn in the FNAF novels, along with the fact that Charlie is a robot and is also Baby, that the Funtime animatronics are actually possessed. But instead of them being filled with agony from specific children, they're full of the original remnant created by the first 5 missing children. You may think this throws a wrench into the timeline, however, they were just simply modified to contain the remnant instead of being created with it, so the timeline still holds. But does this mean that the Ballora from the games is also possessed with the agony from the 5 missing kids? Candy Cadet in FNAF 6 does talk about 5 things becoming 1, and that only really makes sense with the 5 missing children becoming remnant to be injected into the Funtimes. But then that's still confusing, because then like, would it exclude Baby? But it would also make sense, since the robots do end up coming together in the form of Ennard to have their souls be complete. But people also think that she's possessed by Mrs. Afton, even though there is not evidence for that in the slightest. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts down below. Halfway through in at number 5, Mrs. Emily. Even if Ballora isn't Mrs. Afton, who does she represent? Some believe that it could be Mrs. Emily, Henry's wife, the mother of Charlotte of the puppet. Now, why would they think this? Because of William's kill list. Now, Susie may have been the first of the missing children to die, but it's still widely accepted that Charlotte is the first kill overall, which makes it the most significant. After all, killing your partner's daughter is definitely out of the norm, kind of. But most murders are committed through intense emotion, with love being a very common one. So why would William kill Charlotte out of love? Because of her mother. You see, Charlotte, when she was killed, was very young, probably around 3 like her novel counterpart, which means that Charlotte's parents have been together for at least 3 years, and before that, she could have been with anyone. For example, trying to be with William in the aftermath of his wife's death. She could have met Henry this way too, and their child would be a burning reminder of what William had missed out on. Or maybe Charlotte was keeping Mrs. Emily with Henry, so William got rid of her, hoping that he could be Mr. Steal Yo Girl. I don't even think Scott knows at this point. Straight up. And at 4, voice line meaning. Bellora's song has always been an interesting point to talk about. With lines like, "All I see is an empty room, no more joy an empty tomb," we figured out pretty quickly that William was mourning someone. However, some theorists look at the song in an entirely different way now, since after Ultimate Custom Night we got to hear Bellora say, "Admit it, you wanted to let me in." And while that could remain, "you wanted to let me into your life," what if it's more literal than that? What if it's actually he didn't let someone inside somewhere? Maybe whoever Bellora represents wanted to help William in his quest for answers, wanted to help him kill, and he didn't trust them enough, or maybe they were stuck outside in the cold and ended up freezing to death because William was too selfish or something. I mean, there are also signs to indicate something like that. Maybe not as extreme, but Bellora's song also says, "It's so good to sing all day, to dance, to spin, to fly away." And who would say that to a mourning man unless they were at least as sadistic and horrifying as him? I don't know. There's also the fact that she could just be referring to Springtrap because he was stuck in the walls. He was hiding inside the walls when there's music in those halls. Getting close to the end, into number 3, Frozen Solid. Speaking of being frozen solid, could FNAF AR be giving us hints as to how Mrs. Afton or William's baby mama bit the dust, kicked the bucket, played her last song, ended the show, pushed up daisies, slept with the fishes, pegged it, the big adios, the forever nap? Because let's be honest, there has to be some reason for these godforsaken skins in the game other than to keep people playing and spending money on microtransactions, right? Okay, well maybe not, but it's fun to speculate. Bellora currently has 2 skins in FNAF AR, Arctic Bellora and Clockwork Bellora, obviously not including her original form, and both of these could be related to potential deaths. Clockwork is slightly more complicated, but most likely would represent dying of age, since, you know, a clock tells time. However, from what we know, William at that point wasn't really that old, so his wife or partner probably wouldn't have been that old either. So what about Arctic Bellora? Well, this could mean many things, but most likely freezing. Perhaps she fell into a lake that she thought had enough ice on top of it and froze, or maybe she just got stuck in the cold. Maybe she was an adventurous person and tried climbing Mount Everest or something, or got stuck while skiing and froze. We don't know. And while it may be a little far-fetched, it's still fun to think about, since there is no evidence for what happened to William's baby mama, or even if they were married. We don't know. Penultimately, in at number 2, the first. As I mentioned earlier, thanks to the fast facts found in FNAF AR's files, we know that the Funtime animatronics are among some of the first robots built by Afton, which means that they were built around the Springlock era. While this doesn't do much for the timeline because, I mean, we had already placed it around there, the question remains, who was the first out of the Funtime animatronics? And actually, some think that it's Bellora. Some think that thanks to William losing someone he loved, that he made Bellora as a replacement, but then had to create the other Funtimes due to questions from his kids or something similar like his neighbors, because let's be honest, I know what you were thinking during number 7, alright? And that is definitely what his neighbors would have thought as well, especially his friends. So if he builds other robots in this set, it instantly makes it work and not a personal project, I guess I should say. And with Bellora being the first of them, it makes sense that she wouldn't have any of the other abilities, like a claw or a containment chamber to seal away items, since, you know, he wouldn't have thought of that at the time. He only wanted to seal one thing away. His grief! Get your mind out of the gutter. Finally, in at number 1, Clara Afton. And here we go again with the good old-fashioned Clara Afton. That sounds kind of like a Wild West thing, but if it was a Wild West thing, it would be Clara Clayton. Haha. Yeah, it's for you Back to the Future fans. Quite a few people believe that Ballora is actually possessed by Mrs. Afton, even though there is no signs that indicate such, but the community doesn't really care about that. They also seem to think that this mysterious woman is also named Clara, and that's due to the wonderful world of fake TV in a fake world. The character of Clara popping up in Sister Location is certainly not something to ignore, even if it is on a fake soap opera called The Immortal and the Restless. However, the name is not confirmed. Perhaps if we knew the actor who played Clara in that show, that could make more sense, but just because a woman is talking to a guy wearing purple doesn't mean that she's Mrs. Afton, okay? If I wear purple and I talk to Amanda, does that mean that Mrs. Afton is now Amanda Afton? No, because my name is Connor, not William. However, the character a lot of people seem to be comparing to William, justifiably may I say, is named Vlad in the show. So why would a character who represents William be called Vlad, but the character meant to represent his wife uses her actual name? It makes no sense, okay? Until it's confirmed, I'm not calling her Clara Afton, so stop telling me to in the comments. Stop saying that's her name, okay? It's not confirmed. Knock it off, alright? Good.